Hello, class. This is your professor, Dr. Brian Lippincott. And today I'm going to give you a little video that just summarizes how to use a genogram. A genogram is a family tree, and it's a way of interconnecting people in the family and visually directing it. Many times you do it on a blackboard or on a whiteboard, and you describe the family in a visual thing, and it helps everybody see it. One of the main good things about a genogram is it gets it off of being in between people and it puts it out. In a sense, it's almost like narrative therapy, that it externalizes it, and it's not causing people to be blaming each other, but it's looking at the system of the family and how those things come together. So I'm going to share my screen right now, and I'm going to show you a quick little video about the genogram and how to utilize it.
Human relationships are messy, invisible webs of emotion and tension. To treat a patient effectively, clinicians need a way to see that hidden architecture clearly. The genogram functions as a highly standardized visual syntax, a scalable clinical map that translates complex family dynamics into objective, readable data. This chart illustrates the foundational alphabet. The base nodes define cisgendered identities. Squares indicate males, and circles indicate females. To map transgender identities, the syntax nests these shapes. A circle on the inside with a square on the outside represents a transgender man, representing the transitioned persona over the assigned sex. Finally, a triangle drawn inside the primary node denotes a gay, lesbian, queer, or asexual orientation. By establishing these geometric baselines first, a clinician locks down the exact, multifaceted identity of the client. This individual node serves as the grounding point for the rest of the therapeutic map. Once the base node is set, the space immediately surrounding it becomes highly regulated real estate. Demographic data must be plotted in exact zones. Looking at this standard node diagram, basic demographic markers follow strict placement rules. Birth dates always sit on the upper left, above the symbol. If the individual has passed away, the age at death is written inside the symbol, with the exact death date bracketed on the upper right. Secondary socioeconomic factors, like physical location and income, are stacked directly above those dates, keeping the visual core clean. If a practitioner ignores these conventions, they generate systemic static. The map loses its clinical utility and becomes unreadable to the next therapist reviewing the file. Rigorous standardization is what elevates the genogram from a personal sketch to an interoperable medical document. The geometry guarantees clarity. With individual identities anchored vertically, the map expands horizontally across time to track geography and romantic partnerships. This graphic details how the genogram records the stress of migration. Wavy lines above a node indicate a shift in cultural context. A single line identifies someone who lived in another culture but returned, while a double line marks a permanent immigrant. When mapping relationships, the standard convention for a heterosexual couple places the male partner on the left and the female on the right, connected by a solid horizontal line. These lines track the chronological deterioration of a partnership. A single diagonal slash denotes a formal separation. A double slash indicates a finalized legal divorce. If that couple eventually remarries each other, the syntax requires drawing a large X over those initial lines. These coupling lines operate as a living chronological document. They provide immediate visual evidence of historical stress and relational rupture within the system. Modern clinical realities rarely follow a neat, linear progression. Therapists frequently encounter complex, overlapping family structures. This diagram reveals the visual chaos that occurs when an individual has multiple overlapping marriages. The grid quickly becomes tangled. When complexity reaches this level, the clinician must abandon the standard left-to-right timeline, prioritizing the partners and children relevant to the presenting problem. This chart maps offspring, suspended left to right from the parental line. It honors reproductive loss with smaller, elevated nodes for miscarriages. Twins diverge in a V-shape. Foster children use dotted lines, adopted use parallel lines, and donor origins connect to an external triangle. The grid flexes to document the exact reality of the client, proving it can scale to capture any modern family configuration. Structural mapping provides the skeleton of a family system. To understand its function, a clinician must overlay its physiological vulnerabilities and emotional currents. This section of the legend establishes the markers for tracking illness and addiction across generations. A node shaded vertically in red on the left side indicates a psychological or physical illness. If the lower half is shaded horizontally, it denotes substance abuse. When an individual enters remission or recovery, the inner square is hollowed out and crossed with a single line, documenting their resilience. The most inferential layer of the genogram is the emotional network. This legend outlines the specific symbols used to track interactional patterns. 3 straight parallel lines describe an emotionally fused, over-involved relationship. In stark contrast, a jagged zigzag line maps active hostility and conflict. Directional arrows denote specific power dynamics. A single straight arrow points to a designated caretaker, while a jagged arrow indicates the direction of emotional, physical, or sexual abuse. The ultimate systemic rupture is the emotional cutoff, mapped here as a solid line severed completely by 2 perpendicular slashes. This identifies family members who have entirely cut contact to manage intense anxiety. If that cutoff is eventually repaired, a circle is drawn directly between the 2 slashes to bridge the gap. Mapping these specific emotional currents allows the clinician to track the transgenerational transmission of trauma. The client's present behavior becomes traceable to past systemic patterns. When applied to a deeply complex family history, the true scale of this tool becomes apparent. This is the cultural genogram of artists Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera. Individual identity nodes, chronological fractures, and emotional currents all intersect on a single dense page. The clinician uses this map to step back and locate the root causes of pathology hidden within the noise of daily family life. Mastering this visual syntax provides a clinician with the technical precision needed to navigate a family's complex history. By plotting exactly where a system has been, they can identify the specific patterns needed to help redirect its future trajectory.
And I'm going to give you a lecture now about how to utilize the genogram, how to draw one, what the symbols are, how to put it together. And one of the main benefits of the genogram is it gives you a history of the family, and it enables you to look at how things are put together in the family and how they come together. And it gets the family out of the blame frame of blaming each other and into looking at it as a whole. Decoding the family matrix, the clinical grammar of genograms. And you can see a genogram in the back here, kind of what they're looking like. Nowadays, they have computer programs that can do it, but I want you to know the details, because a lot of times you do it, you draw it on the board with the family and you discuss things as we go along. And this is Dr. Brian Lippincott, professor of psychology at the JFK School of Psychology and author of Analytical Psychology and Family Systems. Okay. So, a genogram maps much more than ancestry. From a neo-Jungian perspective, it's a multi-dimensional map of systemic flow, generational blockages, legacies, and resilience. Especially resilience, we're always looking for. To read it, you must learn its clinical alphabet. Panel 1, the isolated unit, is a square or a circle. Or we'll have discussed transgender people, how that would appear in a second. Panel 2, the nuclear connection, the mother, father, and the child. And then the final, the overview dimensional map, the systemic flow, the resilience pathway, where emotional support comes, who's emotionally cut off, where there's conflict. So we're going to talk about that. Clinical alphabet, basic alphabet, genogram symbols. Males are squares, females are females. That's a symbol for female. That's a symbol for the female. But males are squares, females are circles. Index patient, that's the person who's many times the scapegoat, or the person who's the identified patient who's supposed to get the help. Resilience pathway, here is an arrow. Significant life events we discuss. Blockages, legacy of trauma, conflict, critical patients, the conflict, hereditary pattern, cutoffs. You see there's that little jagged line with the emotional cutoff line here in a hereditary pattern. So the alphabet of identity nodes for a cisgender client. Male is square, female is circle. Always capture the client's internal multiple identities as the fundamental grounding point of the map. Transgender woman is a circle on the outside and a square on the inside. Transgender man is a square on the outside, circle on the inside. And the way I think of this in Jungian point of view is I think the outer part is the persona of what is being demonstrated to everybody else. The inner point is the square here. That's the starting point where that was the gender assigned at birth there in the middle. And then the persona of how the person is after the transition on the outside. Sexual orientation. A triangle inside the symbol indicates gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual, queer, intersex, or asexual orientation. That's the triangle inside of a square, or it could be inside of a circle, also a triangle. Now, the anatomy of a node, the data placement. On the upper left side, we put the birth date. In the middle area above, we put the location and the income, socioeconomic class or whatever. And then we have the death rate on the right, the age at death, 74, and the name John Doe. This is the standardized placement, is critical. Moving data out of its designated zone creates systemic static for the next clinician reading your map. You're applying this to other people, right? The genogram format is very important. Leaders in the field of family therapy and family medicine work together to agree on the standardization, which was published in 1985. Those involved were such key people as Murray Bowen from Family Therapy, Jack Fromm, and Jack Medley from Family Medicine. While many of Bowen's followers still argue that genograms do not fit the Bowen's concept, Bowen himself participated in working out the agreement of the choice in symbols. The format included in the fourth edition of the genogram continues to be a work in progress, which this always is. And you'll come up with your own symbols as you go along. We are aware that unless everyone using genograms can remember what the symbols stand for and the rules for when the symbols are placed in the genogram, this will be an unsealable language. While we have urged users to expand genograms with specific codes for issues they want to track in their particular research or their particular family they're dealing with, there will be a need for general agreement. That's super important. So that gives you a little idea of symbols there. Now, culture and context and culture, the weight of migration. In our contemporary world, migration is happening more and more all the time. So this wavy line here is part of what lets you do. There's an immigration or acculturation issues. So, for instance, this is a person who lived in other cultures, but no permanent migration. That's only one wavy line. Two wavy lines is a person who immigrated. Acculturation fundamentally alters family systems. These wavy lines remind us to look for the invisible vertical stressors of assimilation, identity loss, and cross-cultural resilience. Why did the family migrate? What were they seeking? Survival, freedom from persecution, adventure, wealth. What were they leaving behind? Religious or political persecution, poverty. Therapists need to be attuned to migration stresses and ethnic identity conflicts as they are to other stresses in the family history. I found the immigration story enlightening to find for each person. Assessing such factors is crucial for determining whether a family's dysfunction is a normal reaction to a high degree of cultural stress, or whether it goes beyond the bounds of transitional stress and requires expert intervention. The stresses of migration may at times be buried or forgotten. The cultural heritage before migration may have been suppressed or forgotten, but may still influence the family's outlooks, if sometimes subtly, as they try to accommodate to new situations. Many immigrant groups have been pressured by the dominant culture in the U.S. to abandon their ethnic heritage and thus have lost a part of their identity. The effects of this hidden history may be the most powerful of all because they're unseen. We don't see them. Families that have experienced trauma and devastation within their own society before even beginning the progress of immigration will have a monumentally more difficult time adjusting to new life than those who migrated for adventure or economic betterment. There are some specific issues to investigate regarding migration, pre-migration history. What was the situation in the country of origin politically and economically? Was there a war zone that you were escaping from? Those kind of things. The migration history. How traumatic was the migration itself? And did it entail losses along the way beyond the loss of the culture of origin? Don't forget that the loss of the culture of origin is a stress in itself. Post-migration history and culture shock. What experiences did the family have when they arrived in the U.S.? Did they have problems with language, immigration status, poverty? Was there loss of social issues or job options? To what extent was there a shock of cultural values? Coming to the United States nowadays could be really a shock with all this ICE and things that are going on. Did they live in a supportive or an antagonistic community, or were they isolated? Migration and the life cycle. How old were family members when they migrated? How old were the family members who remained in the homeland? A lot of times the older people get left back in the homeland, and which causes all kinds of stress and worried about their health and those kind of things. How did the age of migration influence family members? Were certain children drawn into adult status because they learned English faster than their parents, or because the family lacked the resources to treat them as children? Did the life cycle stage of migration bring about a reversal of the parental hierarchy because parents were less able to negotiate the new culture than their children? Were grandparents limited in their ability to learn English? How did the family's life cycle phase influence their adaptation? These are all super important things that have to do with immigration that we would want to know about, that the genogram can help us. The syntactic rules of coupling. Rule 1, the anchor. In heterosexual relationships, the male partner is always on the left and the female on the right. I don't know exactly why that is, but that's the rule. This holds for parents and grandparents, paternal left, maternal right. Dating. Together for some time but not married. That's this dotted line. Now, if they're in a committed long-term relationship, non-married couple in a committed relationship, you have the dotted line, but then you have this one solid line. Mapping time. Fractures and repairs. This is for people that are married, and this is where you would put the children down here. This is when they get separated. You put a line like this that shows that they're separated, but they're not divorced. 2 lines is divorced, then remarried again to each other. That's, you put the X over it. Now, believe it or not, this is an interesting statistic. This right-hand one here, where people divorce and then they remarry the same person again, happens 12% of the time in couples. That's an amazingly huge number, I think. So I'll let you know why that's a thing in the genogram, because it happens that people remarry each other. The couple line is a living document of relational flow and rupture. So it can change along the vertical and horizontal axis. Breaking the grid. Multiple partnerships. Families nowadays are getting equals complexity. Director's note. Once individuals have been married several times, it becomes impossible to keep the male on the left and the female on the right, and the children in chronological order. At this point, you must make a clinical choice. Prioritize mapping the key people and partners relevant to the presenting systemic problem. So there's a lot of overlap, it's complexity. Don't worry about right and left when it gets to a certain point. The descending lines, mapping of offspring. So you have the parents here, and then if you have a biological child, let's say it was a boy, it would be a square. If you had a miscarriage of then you knew it was a girl, that would be a solid circle there. Infant childhood death. Early death here, which, for instance, happened in Freud's family, infant childhood death. A mother who dies in infancy or childhood is drawn higher and smaller to visually emphasize the disruption and profound loss to the family system if a mother is born in childbirth. which America now is really falling down in the lines of children born at birth and mothers born dying at birth. Our medical system is in need of some repair. Sibling constellations and permutations. So twins, I know this one. You have this mother and father, and you have this little triangle here, this little A-shaped thing. And if they're identical twins, you have this in between. If they're just not identical twins, then I have two sets of twins who are not identical. They're boy-girl twins. 1. 2, foster child. Temporary placement, non-permanent, is a dotted line in between here. If there's a foster adopted child, you have a solid line and a dotted line. That means the child is adopted. Donor insemination. The donor link line to the child is dotted, and the solid link is, here's the father, the mother, child, and here's the donor. Shadows, illness, and addiction. Well, this is very important to talk about here, because this happens a lot. Our symbols for illness show only that there is an addiction or a major physical illness. The symbols basically indicate there is a life-altering problem, but the viewer must check for details to understand the exact nature of the problem. In general, the nature of the illness should also be indicated near the symbol. Genogram software will obviously allow us to track illnesses, both physical and psychological, in much better detail. We can then choose to show particular illnesses for diagnostic purposes, or on the other hand, hide details in order to track other family patterns more easily. If a person participates in therapy, AA, or other recovery program, or indeed they have strong institutional affiliations such as with a church, fraternal organization, or other group, this can be indicated by a line out to a box indicating the therapist or recovery program. We fill the left side of the symbol to show physical and psychological illness, as you see in Node 1. Addictions are shown by filling in the bottom half of the square or circle. In addition, if addiction is suspected, but we're not sure, the bottom half of the person's symbol has slash lines rather than a solid fill. And if they're in recovery from an illness, we fill in only the lower left half, but the line runs through the whole symbol. Those in recovery from addiction have only the left lower half filled in, but again, the line continues across the whole symbol. When a person has both addiction and mental illness, 3/4 of the symbol is filled in. When a person is mentally ill, but in recovery from addiction, the left half is filled in. So it can get complicated. And you can just come up with your own symbols along the way when it gets to be that intense. Pathologies are visually weighted to show how they consume the individual space within the system. So this one you see is consuming, but it's kind of broken up. They're in recovery. It's kind of starting to get better. The invisible web, interactional flow. So you have the dotted line. That's distant. They're distant from each other. Single straight line, they're connected. Two parallel lines, they're close. Two parallel lines is good. Connected, one straight line, dotted means distance. Three parallel lines, though, is fused. That's where it's too close together. Now, if there's hostility, you have this zigzag line. But close and hostile has a zigzag line within two straight lines. So you have this close relationship, but they're in an argument. There's a lot of conflict. Highly independent boundaries are blurred. Highly interdependent boundaries are blurred. If they're a little blurred, then that's a sign that they're interdependent. You're going one way, but not the other way. Friction and trauma, systemic blockages. So a caregiver, so this is a son taking care of his mother. If focused on that is here, the caretaker is here, it's a line. Abuse patterns. Emotional abuse has open lines. You see it's two lines, but it's not filled in. If it's filled in, and it moves along there, that's physical abuse. Sexual abuse is a solid line like physical abuse, but it's within two lines, and it shows which way it's going there from the abuser to the abused. Cutoffs, emotional cutoffs. That's when you move thousands of miles away from your family. You don't talk to them. So you have a cutoff here. Now, repaired cutoff has lines on each side, but the person in the middle, that's what they've repaired a cutoff with each other. That's the two lines there, but with a circle in the middle or a figure in the middle that they repaired it. Now, the synthesis, if we look here. This is an example here of unresolved acculturation trauma in generation one. Okay, let's just say in this particular case, generations one, 1930s to 1940s. There was a divorce. There was a repair. There maybe were twins. Unresolved acculturation trauma is what this would represent. Here, in number two, we have an addiction. Here, there's a fusion between a husband and the partner, and the partner is addicted, and there's a fusion in between them. They're too close. Number three, and it's finally being consciously repaired. We see that line there. That's this one here, the repaired cutoff. Hostility is here. And the repaired cutoff manifests as enmeshment and substance abuse, this one here. Enmeshment and substance abuse of this person here. Repaired cutoff is here. They were cut off, but now they're back together. Finding systemic flow. A genogram is not a static chart. In Neo-Jungian practice, the act of mapping is itself the intervention. By externalizing their history, families can step outside the matrix, detoxify their secrets, and ultimately find flow. Now, common relational questions that you would ask to get some of that. Are there any family members who do not speak to each other or who have ever sustained or recurrent periods of not speaking? Are there any who are in serious conflict? Are there any family members who are extremely close? Who helps out when help is needed? In whom do family members confide? Who are they? Are they all talking to the same person, grandma or whoever? All couples have some sort of marital difficulties. What sorts of problems and conflicts have you encountered? What about your parents' and siblings' marriages? How do you each get along with each child? Have any family members had particular problems dealing with their children? What are the power dynamics in your family's relationships? Are there certain family members who are intimidated by others? Are there certain family members who have more power to define what will happen in relationships? This refers not just to family members who have charisma or emotional power in the family, but specifically to members who have more power because of their status in the family and in the society due to gender, race, skin color, money, socioeconomic status, size, age, or sexual orientations. Now, what about questions about the family role structure? Labels or nicknames used by family members may be particularly instructive. You see that on sports teams too. Often family members have nicknames that describe or reconstruct position in the family. The tyrant, the supermother, the star, the rebel, the responsible one, or the baby. Labels are good cues to the emotional patterns in the system. Questions may elucidate the structure and complementarity of roles in the family, which include: has any family member been focused on as the caretaker, the problematic one, the sick one, the bad one, the mad one, the selfish one, the strong one, the weak one, the dominant one, the submissive one, the successful one, the failure, the savior? Who is or was seen as warm, cold, caring, or distant? Sometimes it's useful to ask members of the present family would be characterized, how members of the present family would be characterized by other family members. How do you think your older brother would describe your relationship with your wife? These are called circular questions because they're asking about the system. How would your father have described you when you were 13, the age your son is right now? Again, gathering as many perspectives as possible enriches the family's view of itself and introduces channels of new information. Relationship patterns of closeness, distance, conflict, and so forth and so on may also repeat themselves over generations. Genograms often reveal complex relational patterns that would be missed if not mapped across several generations. Recognizing such patterns can, it is hoped, help families avoid continuing the repetition in future generations. That's what we're doing. We're trying to stop these negative patterns from going on one to the next. That's the hook of a lot of therapy. A lot of people come into therapy because they said, I had some bad things that happened to me when my childhood growing up, and I don't want to pass that on to the next generation. Let me stop sharing. That was just a quick little lecture about how to create a genogram, what it looks like, some of the issues, how to question people about in order to come up with deeper information. And thank you very much. I hope this is helpful for you, and I hope you've learned a little bit about how to create a genogram. This is Dr. Brian Lippincott signing off.